Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. So let's talk about rare loot and the upcoming Chill of Ravenloft expansion. So lots of players have been posting on the forums and talking about it in other places as well, wondering and asking about what is the loot system going to be like in the Chill of Ravenloft? Is the rare loot system going to be repeated? Because it was very unpopular with players. No one really liked it. So there's been so much of it that DDO's devs actually came out and made a response on the forum. So we're going to go through that, talk about it. I'll give you my response. I did a whole response on the forums to this. And also after that, we'll go back into the actual math and drop rates and talk a little bit about what the drop rates are now, because there's been some changes since I did my last video some time ago on rare loot. There's been some changes, most notably in update 71.2, where they boosted the drop rates of Mithranor's loot. So we can go through, I can show you what the changes are in the actual drop rates, and we can speculate a little bit about what the drop rates might be in the Chill of Ravenloft. So let's start with the statement here. Tolero, DDO's producer, has this to say: greetings, we have been reading your feedback about our upcoming expansion, the Chill of Ravenloft, and your desire to learn more about the loot it will contain, including info about the relative rarity of the loot. So today we wanted to map out how treasure will work in Chill of Ravenloft, especially as compared to previous expansions, content and expansions. With the Chill of Ravenloft, players will be able to create weapons using components they'll find for the Victranium crafting system in Lamortia. This will have similarities to what players experienced in the Isle of Dread, where components are gathered from questing. So that's a big piece of news right there. We're going to get Isle of Dread Dynabone Crafting 2.0 in the upcoming expansion. That's probably a good thing. I think most players like that. Isle of Dread was very popular. The advantage of that kind of system is it's going to have, presumably, if it's like Isle of Dread, you're going to have blanks and weapon support for every single weapon type in the game. They didn't confirm that here, but that's what you would expect if they say it's going to be like Isle of Dread. Tolero continues and says, certain key components, which are used to make the more powerful effects, are obtained either by raiding or by defeating rare landscape encounters. So that's the same as in Isle of Dread. So there's a specific ingredient that you have to get by either killing the purple named rares in Isle of Dread, or you can get it from the chest in the raid. So that's the same. That's cool. I think that's a good that's a good system to have the ingredients in different areas, like have some in the wilderness, some in the raid, some in the quest in chests. I think that was a good system to mirror what Isle of Dread did, if that is what they're doing. Tolero says, we are aiming for the access to ingredients to be similar to our Isle of Dread expansion. Now she continues, and this is the big part where she specifically addresses rare loot. Tolero says, there will additionally be rare items to hunt for, which will provide fewer static effects, but increased flexibility in the form of more Lamortia-specific augment slots. The Lamortia augments come from crafting them, similar to Dynabone augments. Okay, little vague, but apparently the rare loot this time seems to be, based on this statement, something that gives you access to additional augment slots. Now, is this going to be the same as the more common items, just with extra augment slots? Are they going to be completely new items? We don't know. Are they going to be super essential for gear sets? Because that was one of the issues with Mithranor. Like they took common, and I'll get to this in my response, but they took common effects that were in set bonuses previously. For example, just to name one, artifact bonus to fortification bypass. That was in the part of the family set. But for some reason, they made the rare augment in Mithranor for the same effect. They made it rare. That same effect, they made it rare. So there's gating with the rare loot system to get a completed gear set. Anyways, Tolero continues. Mithranor was too rare. We adjusted it during update 71.2. So that's nice to see them to come out and say just blatantly, yeah, we screwed up in Mithranor. The loot was too rare, which we knew they felt that way anyways, because they've made several changes. They bumped up the rarity of the wilderness loot, the wilderness rare table, and then they adjusted it further in 71.2. And we'll get into the specifics of what was actually adjusted based on players who have looked at the actual game data in just a minute when we get to the Excel spreadsheet. But she continues that they adjusted it during update 71.2, increasing rates, and also being mindful of whether a rare drop was gated behind the rarity of the encounter it was attached to. Now, I've read that part of the sentence multiple times. I don't really know what Tolero means when she says being mindful of whether a rare drop was gated behind the rarity of the encounter it's attached to. I think they meant that I think by that sentence, Tolero means they took into account the fact that the wilderness rare also was gated behind an occurrence rate. So like every time you go to the cave in the Mithranor wilderness area, there's only maybe a 25% chance or so of the worm or the dragon actually be there. I think that's what she means. That's my best guess. Tolero continues and says, with Chill of Ravenloft, we're increasing the drop rates from what they were in update 71.2. So that's good. Tolero says they're going to continue to increase it. So we'll speculate about that in a minute. I mean, of course, they don't say here, she doesn't say here exactly what they're doing. And when they say increasing, that could mean anything. It could mean they're going up 0.01%. It could mean they're going up 10%. We don't know. Because the policy with SSG and a lot of gaming companies, they don't disclose drop rates. I think they should, but anyways, let's just continue. We'll get into that in a minute. Tolero finally says in the last paragraph here, when it comes to rare treasure, the ultimate goal is what we want. Obtaining a rare drop to feel meaningful and not rote, so that when someone gets one, it feels special. So they want to hit that sweet spot, as she says here in a second. Well, we'll just read. With that said, we also don't want it to feel insurmountable, so we continue to tune the rate so that we can hit that sweet spot of special but not impossible. We're expecting players to be able to try things out in the Lamani preview in a couple weeks. We've been considering your feedback and assessing the impacts of the treasure rates carefully for several months, and we encourage you to provide feedback on the latest rendition of the expansion's loot system during the upcoming Lamani preview. I don't know why the last few sentences is in here. Like, you can't, the whole issue with the community and rare loot is the drop rate. It's a math problem. It's that the drop rate percentage is too low, and that's nothing that, like, during a 2-day Lamania preview, you're not going to be able to have any like experience on that. Like, that's not enough time for us to know how rare the loot is. So I don't know why that's even in here. I think, SSG, if you're listening to this, I don't think you should put stuff like that in these statements, because I'm not saying you're being obtuse, but it will appear that way to players. It's like, why are you saying that it just doesn't have anything to do with Lamani preview. Anyways, I would say the vast majority of players want them to go back to what we saw in previous expansions in terms of the drop rates, where we didn't have too much stuff that was rare. Now, they've certainly done things that were rare in the past, and let me get over to my response here that I posted on the forums. The Gibber's Blade, for example, that's example of something rare, which I think is fine. But when it came to Mithranor, the big issue was so much of it, like 30%, according to my calculations that I've done in previous videos, was rare. So that just, that plus gating formerly common effects behind the rare loot table, so that you couldn't even get a full gear set, like a normal gear set, without having to deal with rare drops, was a big turnoff. But let's go over my response here. So I say here that I think rare loot is great, which I do. I think rare loot is great if done correctly, because I agree, it is cool for there to be something super ultra rare and for you to get it. Like, we have this already, right? Like, it does feel cool when you get, say, a Reaper, a super good Reaper bonus that has like +2 Reaper bonus to all stats with a Mythic +3 on it. Like, that does feel cool. But the thing about the Mythic and Reaper system that we have with those types of bonuses is that they're on top of the vanilla named items, right? So it's not something that's required. Like, it's not like in Mithranor where you had to deal with the rare tables just to get a completed gear set. That's just gravy. Like, the Mythic and Reaper bonuses are just gravy. I mean, unless you're like an R10 Raider Super Min Maxer, then maybe you make it essential in your gear set to get the best of the best. But for the vast majority of players, it's like, oh cool. I was farming this helmet, and the one I got happens to have Mythic +3 on it. Cool. It's just a bonus. See what I'm saying? But it's not gating it. So I would like to see them take that approach, to where the bonuses, if they want to do rare loot, make it feel more like gravy and not essential. And also reduce the amount. Like, I type here maybe 5 to 10 pieces of rare loot in total for the whole expansion would be the right amount. I would say no more than 1 per quest, and that would also solve the problem of the rare loot tables being watered down, because one of the other issues with the rare loot is that there were multiple rare items on the table, and the augments and the named items that were both rare augments and rare items shared the same loot table, so that made getting what you wanted even harder, because not only did you have to deal with a tiny chance to get the rare table, even when you got the rare table, you would only have if there were 4 items on the rare table, you would only have, again, you have to deal with a 1 to 4 chance. So there were just multiple layers of really tough RNG. Like if you go to a wilderness rare, right, there's a 25% chance that the rare is going to be there. If you once you kill the rare, it's only say you're running you can only run on 1 difficulty in wilderness. So let's say it's a 33% chance to get the named items. You had to deal with that. And there was another layer of really low RNG with, okay, once you got a named item, did you hit the common or the rare table? And that was another layer. And then there's another layer because you had to go down to, okay, I got lucky that the worm was there, and I hit the name table, and I hit the rare table. Then you had to hit another, say, like 1 in 4 chance, if there were 4 items in the rare chest, to get the piece of rare item you wanted. So it amounted to a vast majority, just a huge amount of farming time, which we'll get into when we hop into to the spreadsheet in a second. But anyways, what I would like to see is what I lay out here. Like, optimally, it would be cool if the rare loot either had, they were just gravy versions of common loot. So as I say here, like Artifact of Fort Bypass. So that was something that was gated behind rare tables in the Myth expansion, as I stated already. So it was 30%. If you want to do a rare item, I would be okay with there being a rare table. Maybe you have Fort Bypass 33% on the rare table, but you also have a common version of that, so that if you really want to grind that extra 3% because you want to be a super min maxer, you can grind for rares, but don't gate common, basically required artifact and profane bonuses behind rare tables that you need to get just to have a completed gear set. Because that's the other, that's a huge issue, because if there's one effect, that's enough, because we know how loot Tetris is in DDO, right? If there's one effect that's hidden behind a rare, it's gated behind a rare table, then that basically means you can't use that gear until you get that plus all the other gear. So at that point, I mean, I know at least for me, I was like, oh, well, I'll just not even use Myth gear. And that's, to this day, I've never farmed out a single piece of Myth gear. Now, that said, part of that's because I've been working on Heroic Completionist and I've been on the TR train. But still, my original intention was to farm out like some heroic gear sets to go along with the Sharon heroic gear set. But I ended up not doing that because of the rare system. But anyways, that's my response. If they do have the rare stuff, just make it gravy versions so it's not essential. Or if they want to have, I'm not against some like super rare, super powerful item, but just make it so it's not required. Like, I think a good example, like if you want to make a super ultra rare item that's maybe a D-door clicky, I think that would be cool. Like something that would be super desirable, and you can make it super duper ultra rare, but it wouldn't be required, right? You can get along without a D-door clicky, even if having it would be super cool. So let's hop over now to the drop rates. The drop rate Excel table I have. So this is the same spreadsheet that I had previously. If you watched I'll link it below in the description, but I did months ago I did a video going over the drop rate and this whole spreadsheet, and I talked through how the rares work and how the math is calculated for these things. So I'm not going to repeat all that and explain this whole spreadsheet. Go watch that video if you want to see me, if you want to have all this stuff explained to you. All I brought this spreadsheet up for is to go over some new information we have in that update 71.2 and speculate on how the drop rates might change. All right, so in update 71.2, they did up the chance for the rare table. Now, we don't know, I can't say for sure what the drop rate is, so I'm just going off of what, basically what people who have looked at the game data have posted publicly. And the fact is, the other thing with them not disclosing the rare rate is everyone finds out anyway, because people are going to look at the game data. There's going to be a few players that look at the game data and then tell everyone in the community. So we're going to know anyway. So I honestly wish SSG would just disclose the drop rates. I don't think that's going to hurt them financially. I would not think it would. I don't see why that would discourage someone who wants something really bad from going after it. But in any case, my point is, we knew from people who had gone through the game data that the chance was 3% previously. And that was before update 71.2. And that's the chance for the rare table. And I have to say that I don't data mine game data or anything like that. So this information is based on what players who have done that have told the community at large, because this is a thread. And I think as SSG, I would assume it's fine with it because it's on the forums and it's been on the forums. This thread, which I'll post below as well, this thread, which has gone through the talking about the actual drop chance based on data that's been mined, that's been on the forums for months and months and months. So I'm assuming SSG is okay with people discussing that on their own platform on DDO.com, because it's been there and they haven't deleted the thread or anything like that. So, but based on what some players have reported who have done that, and I'm relying on them, so I can't say for absolutely sure again because I don't do this myself. But based on what they're saying in update 71.2, the rate went from 3 to 5%. So this is how it changed. So previously, with the 3% rate, and the going from 3 to 5 did make a huge difference, because at 3%, you're looking at these numbers. In this right here, this is a chance to get a rare in a standard quest, assuming that there is a item from Mythrunor with 7 commons and 3 rares. So the drop rates went from a 0.34% chance per run to get that item. It went to, with the 5% for the rare table, it went to 0.33%. I'm sorry, what am I saying? 0.56%. I was reading the wrong number. So it went, went up quite substantially, and that does make a big difference. So when we look at other numbers, so going back to 3, average runs 294, and that's assuming you yourself are the only one farming on one character. It went from 294 down to 176, so that's a big difference. And this is average runs if 6 members are passing. It went from, at 3% pre-update 71.2, it went from 49 runs if everyone is passing to down to 29 runs. And that equates to these numbers below. I guess you can pause the video and look for yourself at these changes, but now it's to 22 average weeks if you're ransacking one character, 3.7 weeks. So that's much more manageable at 5% for the rare table versus 3. I mean, I think all of us would rather not have that, but that's better. So if we go to the wilderness rares now, so this is the same rare rate here. So before, and this is the one that I looked at previously in that video. I was like, wow, it would take you 1,616 runs to that spot on the map. So now that's reduced with 5%, assuming that's true, down to 969. And we're going from, 50 almost a year average weeks if you're ransacking one character, down all the way to 30. So that's certainly a big chunk of time off that. So they did say, Tolero said in their statement, and this is the whole reason, one of the reasons I'm going over to this, Tolero said that they're going to increase it further. So let's speculate. What will they increase it to? So I find it highly unlikely that they would increase it just by a marginal amount, like 0.51. Like I think if they increase it, it's going to be by a whole number. So I think more likely if they increase it again, it would be something more like 7%. If I had to speculate, we don't know again. Could be 6, could be 7, could be 10, could be 5.1%. We don't know, but let's say it's 7. All right, 7. We're looking at these numbers. If it is 7, and assuming that we have a similar layout of loot in the same number of rare items in each chest, which say there's 3 rare items in each chest in this instance and 4 in each chest in this instance. These are the kind of numbers we would look at both for the rare for a standard quest and for a wilderness. So if it is 7, you're looking at 15 average weeks if you're ransacking one character, and then 2.6 if everyone's passing. It's much more doable. And then with the wilderness rares, you're looking more like 0.58% chance each chest lootings, so 173 chest lootings, and more like 21 22 average weeks if you're ransacking one character. So that's that would be a lot more doable. The other thing I want to talk about with this is, you have to bring up the fact that they are now, and this is kind of an ethical concern that I have, because they are now selling in the expansion loot, and they are limited. As far as I know, there has been no plans to put these in the store for DDO points, but they are now selling ransack bypasses in the expansion bundles, and they are limited to a fixed number. But I'm a little bit concerned here with the rares. I hope that they don't offer that stuff in the store for points, a rare like ransack bypass, because I like ransack existing because there are certain players with problems with just not having any kind of set limit for them. So I worry about certain players with certain maybe addictions just running through all their money if they can just pay endlessly for ransack by timers, because at least ransack being in the game does help limit that behavior from players. And if they sell those in the store and they have rare loot, it just looks bad, and I worry a little bit about those players. But it's not a good look to have rare loot and to also sell ransack bypass timers. So I don't know, but yeah. Anyways, guys, we'll see what happens. The statement from SSG doesn't really tell us too much other than rare loot's going to be back, but it won't be as bad as Myth Draenor, and it's going to be for augment slots. How important it is to get the rare stuff, I don't know. I hope it's just gravy and not required to get certain gear sets, and I hope the drop rates are substantially better than what they are in Myth Draenor. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about rare loot. That's about all I have to say about this topic. I'll see y'all next time. Have a good one. Take care.